Everything's prepared, sir.
Prepared?
The boat's at anchor, sir. I've checked her over. She's fully provisioned for 30 days at sea if need be. Salted pork, dried figs, apples, and wine. 6 barrels of fresh water, sir. She's newly caulked and pitched. Sails are sound. I've tested the ropes myself.
The crew?
All good Sicilians, sir. Seasoned sailors, all known to us. Everything's ready.
The swell?
Some swell, sir, yes. White Horse is further out, but Felix Gallus says it's safe to sail.
Gallus is...
The captain, sir.
Ah, yes.
We'll set a course for Sardinia. No one will expect that. We'll creep around the top and make our way down the westward shore, hugging the coast all the way. Then take the first calm day, cross to Africa, to Utica, and then down to New Carthage. We can winter there and then make our way to Athens in the spring. To join young Marcus Tullius, sir. Your son.
I'm not coming.
My master, my father. Please. Mark Antony has threatened you in the Senate. He's threatened to tear down your house about your ears.
They did that once before.
We cannot stay in Italy, sir.
I cannot leave my daughter.
My master, my father. She is gone now. She is not here.
I find her here on some days, walking in the woods of Astora, and all the canopy overhead is drenched with rain, and the birds are silent. And then a shaft of sun escapes from the rack of grey clouds to pierce the forest, pierce your fog of tears, and all the leaves overhead are golden green. Or here, at Formiae, when the sea breeze blows the scent of wild jasmine through the terraces, and I turn and I start as if I see a shadow or a memory or an echo of her chuckling when she was a little girl, and we played hide and seek all through the pillars and the vines. Tullia, I will not find her in Athens, Tyro, or Utica. She is here. I would like to build a temple in her memory.
Yes, sir.
At Tusculum, I think, where
she died.
And the child, my grandson, just a month old.
My master, my father, I must rouse you now. For your sake, for young Marcus Tullius, your only remaining child, for all your household. They are very afraid for you, sir. The times are more dangerous than ever. Antony's incontinent with fury. This is what I've heard from our friends. 3 days ago, the 19th, when the Senate assembled, Antony arrived with a gang of armed men, locked the doors of the Curia Pompeia, and delivered a malicious, hateful, and poisonous attack on your entire career, laced with calumny and profanity from start to finish. They say he'd been stewing in a pit of drink and debauchery for days.
Very consular.
Then he hired a speechwriter, a rhetorician of sorts, to polish his bile and poison and turn it into a comprehensive demolition of all your works and public service, cursing your consulship, the execution of Catiline and his accomplices.
For which they will never forgive me.
He blames you for the murder of Clodius.
I wish it were true.
For igniting civil war between Caesar and Pompey.
Me.
He even accuses you of inspiring Brutus and Cassius and the rest to assassinate Caesar.
Sounds like I've been very busy.
It seems clear his aim is to incite Caesar's veterans against you.
Yes, to tear down my properties and terrorize my household and blacken my family name. Oh. What's he so upset for? He has the consulship, he has Caesar's money, his legions. Brutus and Cassius have fled to the east. What possible threat am I?
You are Cicero, the greatest orator and statesman of our age.
I'm a tired, grief-stricken old man.
My master, my father, you are the beacon that guides the ship of state, its true north. And Antony knows this. And he will have your approval, or he will have your life.
It's funny, isn't it? When the storm drove us back from Syracuse, and our little ship was tossed like a fragment of driftwood, hurled this way and that, and we lashed ourselves to the masts and clung there in terror and prayed to every god we could name. Where is the power? I found myself thinking. Such violence of nature, the rage of Neptune, the great convulsions of the deep. What is man's power to this? The year before Caesar's consulship, his real consulship, when he was actually elected, it was the year of the consuls Metellus, Celer, and
Afranius, 694 ab urbe condita.
Caesar had come back from Hispania Ulteria, mensis Junius, month of Juno, and he wanted a triumph like any returning general, but he also wanted to run for consul the following year. You'd have been about 19 or 20?
21 that year, sir. I was still serving your parents in Arpinum.
Yes, that's right. Well, after my consulship and the defeat of Catiline and his conspirators, when we had come so close to losing the Republic, I tried to promote a vision of harmony, concordia ordinum, a collaboration of the classes, the Senate, the equestrians, the plebs.
The blend of privilege and tradition and the will of the people in plebiscite.
Precisely. But in our weak, sad, and unstable republic, the extremists in either camp were more interested in asserting their privileges and prerogatives to block any form of progress or cooperation because they were so stupid and selfish and short-sighted. They created a stalemate in public affairs, and the strong men took over. And it was all so stupid. Caesar had come back from Spain. He wanted his triumphal procession into Rome. Fair enough. He also wanted to run for consul the following year, but the Senate forced him to choose. Ah, no, they said. You can either have your triumph, or you can leave your troops outside the city and enter as a civilian to be nominated for election. You can't do both. This was Cato, you see, arch-conservative, extreme Republican traditionalist, digging in his heels just because he could, wielding the maximum power of the Senate to put Caesar in his place. And of course, Caesar never forgot it and never forgave it.
Whereas if they'd worked with him, made an exception to their rules...
They'd made exceptions before plenty of times, but this time they refused to bend. And a tree that won't bend in the storm, well, we know what happens to such trees. And I remember thinking then, where is the power? Is it in Caesar's legions massed outside the city? Or in the ebb and flow of money and fame? Is it in the revered institutions of the state, the Senate, the law courts, the augurs, the tribunes? Or is it in the earth itself, the land that feeds and shelters us? Or in the storm, fire and tumult of the cosmos?
Or in the power of words?
Well, I hope so. The amount I write is beyond belief, Atticus tells me. Then what else should I do? The eternal city is a pigsty of corruption and violence. Grief and bitterness drive away all thought of sleep. What else shall I do but write? How could I have kept alive without my books?
I want you to keep alive. I want you to leave with me now. Stay alive and flee Italy. Or stay and fight, but don't do nothing. Don't wait here to be killed.
Sometimes I thought of the Republic as a vision of harmony, order, virtue and wisdom, somehow shimmering just out of reach.
But we must keep striving for it, working to bring that ideal into being, however far we fall short.
Now I think it is the burden of Sisyphus, a wretched, hell-bound boulder that exhausts our lifelong efforts to raise it heavenwards.
The mountain that wants to fall into the sea.
And I am tired, Tyro. Tired of trying to save men from themselves, this madhouse of men thirsting for war. When we came back from Cilicia, was it only 5 years ago? It could have avoided the war. Sometimes I wish this world, this life were just a bad dream we're all going to wake up from and heave the longest sigh of relief. None of it was true.
But this is the world, the life we have.
370 senators voted for Curio's compromise. Let Caesar and Pompey both surrender their commands at the same time, and 22 rotten-hearted, murderous-minded, extreme conservative aristocrats vetoed because they wanted a war. What will historians make of us in 100 years' time, or 1,000? And what will they make of my part in it?
You worked tirelessly for peace. No one could have done more.
It's not just grief that drives away sleep, Tyro. It's regret, self-recrimination. What could I have done differently? What did I fail to do? Could I have done more?
Let us go, sir. Please.
Now I remember, Tyro, in the storm, in the height of the storm, when I thought the sea would smash us in splinters and drown us in the deep, she came to me.
She? Tullia?
In the great wall of rain and lightning rearing up from the cliffs at Leucopetra, I saw her face. I heard her calling me. Come back, Tata. Come back. I tried to flee, Tyro, but the sea drove me back. And she called me. I must sleep now.
Year of the consul, Marcus Antonius, 710 ab urbe condita, or, as you might say, 44 BC. Julius Caesar, sole surviving triumvir and dictator of the Roman Republic, has been assassinated on the Ides of March, as portents in the heavens, the flight of birds, and the entrails of sacrificed animals all foretold, although it took him completely by surprise. As Caesar falls dead at the feet of the statue of his great rival Pompey, Marcus Junius Brutus raises his bloody dagger high in the air and cries, "Now, Cicero, restore the Republic!" My master, Rome's leading senator and chief defender of the Republic, Proconsul Marcus Tullius Cicero, is present at the assassination, but he knew nothing of the plot. Caesar's co-consul and right-hand man, Mark Antony, is left alive. He immediately takes control of Caesar's papers and his funds. Meanwhile, Marcus Aemilius Lepidus, Caesar's master of horse, moves 6,000 troops into the city to occupy the Forum.
Et idem indigno, quandoque bonus domitato merus, verum opere longo,
and indignant
vas est
when the word
opere
home
pure
nods.
somnum.
Yet, in a long work, it is permissible for sleep to creep over the writer.
Tulliana.
Wake up, Tata, you sleepyhead. Carpe diem.
Is that my little Tulliana come to torment me?
The sun is high in the sky, Tata. Your breakfast is on the table, and you told me to wake you up.
Tulliana! Oh, you scoundrel! Oh. Don't you know I'm the consul of Rome, exhausted by the business of state?
You're a lazy old man. Ugh! You smell like a stable.
Ah, you're a lazy old man. You're growing a beard. You're not a girl at all. You're a goat. Yes, you're a mean old Macedonian nanny goat with a long beard. Now, come along. We must have some breakfast, and then you can show me the vines and Pertinax's new tricks before I go.
Oh, why'd you have to go back to Rome? Why can't you stay here? The air is so dirty in Rome, and all your books are here, and me, and the sea, and the vines.
I wish I could stay, Tulliola. But I have to go back.
Back to your cave.
Very good, yes. Back to my cave, yes. So, tell me about the cave.
Plato said the world is like a cave.
Very
a
good.
very smelly old cave.
Or was it very smelly? I don't remember him saying anything about the smell.
Very smelly, yes. I think you'll find in Book 7 of the Republic, he specifically mentions the smell.
Oh, yes.
Yes, Book 7, paragraph 514.
Well, I'll take your word for it.
But the prisoners who lived in the cave, they didn't notice the smell because it was all they knew.
Now, was the smell real or an illusion?
Oh no, it was real. It was worse than the stables of King Augeas.
Well, why was it so smelly?
Because of the philosopher who lived there. He never washed because there was no water, and he said that smell was an illusion, and he had his mind on higher things, even though he smelt to high heaven. And he always had his nose in a book, so he didn't notice how smelly he was.
And did he have a name, this smelly old philosopher?
Yes, his name was Marcus Tullius Smelly Sock Socrates Cicero. And he was a Stoic, so he was good at putting up with evil smells.
I'll tell your mother to have you whipped.
I'll tell her to have you whipped.
Tulliola! So, my wonderful, beautiful, smelly Tulliola, so that I know your very expensive education is not being entirely wasted, and Tyro is not leading you astray, please tell me something else about Plato's cave, apart from the smell.
Socrates tells Plato's brother Glaucon that human beings are very silly and need to become educated like him, so they can see the world as it really is. People without education are like prisoners in a cave who can only see shadows on the cave wall, and they think that's all there is.
And what casts the shadows?
Well, there are these puppeteers behind the prisoners, waving puppets and models of people and animals and things in front of the fire, making a shadow show. Like when I make animal shadows in the lamplight for baby Marcus.
But why don't the prisoners turn around and see the puppeteers?
Well, they can't. They're locked in shackles. They can only look one way and see one thing. Must be very boring. And they're very stupid because even when they hear the puppeteers speaking, they can't work out where the noise is coming from. They think the voices come from the shadows.
So do you think Socrates was right? That most of us live in a world of illusions, a shadow world?
Well, I think a lot of people are very silly, and they want things that they think are going to make them happy, but they don't. Like expensive dresses, or jewels, or lots of slaves, or toys, or I don't know, silly things. But none of that's like having nice friends, or playing a game together, or doing something really fun, like dancing, or riding, or weaving, or painting.
So how do we teach people the truth? What does Socrates say?
Well, you have to force them,
Force them?
drag them.
Or drag them? Drag them kicking and screaming, like you when you wouldn't go to bed?
No, Tata, that was entirely different. I was always virtuously engaged in some improving activity, the benefit of which was not apparent to you or Mother because of the limitations of your education.
Ah, yes, of course.
It was you who needed to broaden your understanding, sharpen your cognition, deepen your perception, like the prisoners in the cave. If they ever got free from their shackles and looked around and saw the fire, the light would hurt their eyes. You could try to show them the puppets and dummies, look, this is where your shadow shapes come from, but they wouldn't be able to see them properly, and they'd never believe you. They'd want to turn away, back to their old ways. I suppose it's a bit like training a foal, like Pertinax.
Is it?
Well, in a way.
Well, we train a foal like Pertinax to serve us, to serve our needs. So we're training something wild to become our servant. But this is about setting prisoners free, isn't it? Freeing ignorant people from their illusions.
Yes, but people's minds are like a wild horse. Untamed, untrained in thinking, unruly, easily distracted, running all over the place. You have to train people's minds in order to set them free.
Very good. Very good. But what if they don't want to be trained?
Well, then you have to force them.
But does it work?
Well, Socrates says, if you could drag one of the prisoners up through the cave...
And out into the light, then yes, at last they would start to perceive the world as it truly is. But is there another way, apart from forcing them?
Well, no. Because the way up through the cave is steep and rocky and painful for people who spent their whole lives sitting doing nothing. The light would hurt their eyes more and more, and they become more and more angry and frightened. And then, when they finally got out into the daylight, they'd be completely blinded.
So is forcing them, coercion, tyranny, the only way to educate the ignorant? Is that what we believe?
Well, maybe you could tempt them, entice them?
Like giving Pertinax an apple?
No, Tatter, that's a reward post factum. You need to tempt the prisoners out of the cave. Like Orpheus.
Aha!
He leads Eurydice out of the underworld, playing beautiful melodies on his golden lyre and singing with his golden voice.
So beautiful that even the rocks and plants would rise up to follow the sound.
Eureka! So the philosopher must be like Orpheus.
I suppose so, yes. Yes! Having once got free and made the painful journey up into the light, the enlightened one, the philosopher, must go back down into the cave.
Well, why can't he stay up in the sunshine and enjoy himself and let them sort themselves out?
Well, it's tempting. He doesn't want to go back down into the cave. But I suppose he wouldn't enjoy the beauty of the world and the sunlight and the rivers and forests and so on by himself when he remembers those prisoners stuck down there in the cave.
But why not? It's their own silly fault. They need to free themselves.
Well, maybe they can't. Maybe they need him to help them.
He should send them a letter explaining that he's very busy at the seaside with his daughter, inspecting the vines and training Pertinax, so he can't come. And if they want to break free from their shackles, they should use their initiative, like you always say, and work it out for themselves.
That is excellent. Tulliola's theory of government. Sort yourselves out, you silly people. Unfortunately, they can't be relied upon to do so. Remember what Socrates says in Book 5. Ean me, ein dego. Translate, please.
Unless, said I,
Hoi philosophoi basiliusosin en tais polesin.
I, the philosophers, become kings in our states.
Hoi basiles tenun legomenoi kaidunastai philosophososin.
Or the kings and princes of this world had the spirit and power of philosophy.
Yeah.
Our cities will never break free from their evils, no, nor the human race, as I believe. And only then will this our state have the possibility of life and behold the light of day.
Only then will our state behold the light of day.
But Orpheus failed, Tatter.
And how did he fail? His song moved even the god of death to pity.
Yes, and he granted his wish. Eurydice could walk free out of the underworld, back to the world of the living. But Orpheus must walk ahead of her, leading the way and never looking back. If he looked back, he would lose her forever. Once more, he set forth on the terrifying journey through the realm of the dead, soothing to sleep the savage three-headed hound Cerberus, who guards the gates of Hades, and braving all perils, until he came at last in sight of the light of day and the land of the living. Every step of the journey, the temptation to look back tormented Orpheus. He could hear no footsteps following his. Perhaps it was all a dream, a mirage, and she was not following at all. Now, as he set foot On the threshold of the living realm, he yielded at last and turned. Overjoyed, he saw her, just a few yards behind him, the shade of his beloved Eurydice, and their eyes met. Her feet had made no sound, because she was still a wraith, and could not be restored to life until she came out into the light of day. As the spell broke, grief and horror filled her eyes, and she turned and fled, back into the dark.
Caesar's body lay abandoned where he fell in the Senate house, rent with 23 stab wounds. Brutus, Cassius, and their co-conspirators summoned a public meeting the same afternoon. Stony silence met their proclamation of liberty. Cicero moved immediately to negotiate an amnesty and reconciliation. If Caesar were indeed a tyrant, then his assassins are liberators of the Republic, so they are not to be prosecuted. In return, Caesar's decrees are not to be repealed, and his planned program of government will remain valid. Civil war is averted, it seems. Then 3 days later, at Caesar's funeral, Antony's impassioned eulogy whips the crowd into a madness of grief and rage. They set fire to Caesar's body in the forum and run riot through the streets, attacking the homes of the assassins and their supporters. Brutus and Cassius flee to Greece. Then, at the reading of Caesar's will, his great-nephew, Octavian, just 19 years old, is named his heir. Antony rallies Caesar's veterans in order to consolidate his own position as sole executor of Caesar's decrees. Octavian arrives in Rome to take up his inheritance. A new civil war looms.
Oh, gods, no! Stop! Stop! Tyro. We are here in...
In Formiae, sir.
In Formiae, yes. And where are we going?
We were preparing to leave Italy, sir. Our boat's at anchor in the harbour.
Oh, such a terrible dream, Tyro. Please help me to wake from it.
My master, my father. Water.
I was there in the Curia Pompeia, Tyro, seeing it all like a play, like a frieze of pictures. Casca grabbing his robe, the flash of his dagger, a tide of voices rising in alarm, and then he stabs down from behind at his neck. And Caesar, my friend. Yes, I say he was my friend. We entertained him for dinner only last December at Puteoli. These 2,000 men camped on my land. We talked of literature. Such a fine writer. We walked together along the shore. He took a bath and an oil massage before dinner. We were human beings together. And now I see him staggering this way and that, oozing everywhere with wounds, throwing up his hands to protect himself, his eyes rolling in horror. And they savage him, Tyro. Brutus stabbed him in the groin. No worse agony possible. And as he slips in his own blood and grabs at the marble feet of Pompey's statue, with his last twitching effort, he drags a fold of his toga across his face. And I kneel beside him, murmuring, Gaius Julius, my friend. And I see my hand reach down, trembling, to lift the cloth from his face, and Tyro,
Sir?
beneath a blood-stained cloth, It is my faith. My faith. The man who lies pierced and ruined on the floor of the Senate House is me.
My master, my father, be comforted. A dream. You are here with me. You are alive, and you did not kill Caesar.
But I rejoiced in his death. And yes, he did great wrongs to me and to the state, but still I say he was my friend. He wanted my friendship. And how might things be different now if I had not prized my precious independence, my virtue, so stubbornly? Different for me, different for our nation. Did I think that my intellect and my eloquence, my unblemished record of public service would be any match for the likes of Caesar and Pompey? Who was I to challenge them? A nobody from the provinces, a novice homo trying to play with the big boys. Not a patrician, not a soldier. None of my family had ever held public office. Caesar and Pompey were like the forces of nature itself. All I ever had was a quick wit and a way with words and a capacity for work.
You are very shocked, sir, and full of grief. And may I say, full of fear?
Yes, Tyro, I feel weak with fear.
Our lives are so fragile. Untimely death stalks us at every turn. Your daughter, her infant son, her husband, Piso.
He was a beautiful young man, such courage and kindness.
It seems a miracle any of us make it to old age. So, to see a strong man cut down, and not by mishap or disease, but by violence, it is a terrible thing.
Why do we fail to honor the glorious mystery of life itself? We kill and we maim like savage beasts, destroying an exquisite work of art, smashing and ruining something we could never make, as if we were jealous of that divine spark.
And you have written of that spark of divinity. You know, the unbreakable bond of kinship between every human being, however humble.
Yes. It must be true. You know that I never held much truck with my wife's devout piety. I scorned and scoffed at her devotions. We argued incessantly. Perhaps if I'd been more humble, more curious, things might not have turned so sour between us.
There were many reasons, sir.
Yes, yes. But I still say, well, between ourselves, I can say, the gods and all those tales are surely no more than that. Colourful tales which furnish the public pageant.
Metaphors, perhaps.
Yes. Metaphors or symbols for the struggles and trials of humanity.
I agree. But I also agree with your conviction in the Stoics' doctrine. The divine spark, that immortal diamond at the heart of every human being, unique and precious, even in the worst of men, that binds us to each other, regardless of birth or fortune. How could I not? I was born a slave.
You are like my son, Tyro. My brother. I've never told you this before. You were too young back then. In the last month of my consulship, when I ordered the deaths of those men, Catiline's gang of murderers, when I apprehended those scoundrels, Cethegus Lentulus, Gabinius, Catiline, red-handed in their treachery. Those wolves, useless, talentless, entitled, high-born wastrels who thought the state was theirs to pillage because of their birth. When I uncovered their plans and arrested them, even as they were about to set the flame to the tinder, and I ordered their deaths, armed with the ultimate decree of the Senate, I still shrank from the deed. Not just from the gravity of summary execution without trial, depriving them of the sacred right of every citizen, but because they were men, bearers each of that divine spark. This I have never told anyone, Taro. When those 5 were taken down into the prison, that dingy, dank hole beneath the Capitoline, and lowered down into the hole, each with a noose around his neck until the life was choked from their body, I went with each man. 5 horrible journeys. And I laid my hand on the head of each in blessing and spoke prayers for their forgiveness. And I wept for those murderers.
Bearers each of the divine spark.
I believe it.
Do you think we shall meet each other, good and bad, in that land beyond death, if there is such a land? Meet as brothers?
Perhaps. I suppose that would be a hopeful thought. What do you have there?
While you were sleeping, a letter arrived from Rome, from Octavian.
Huh? What does he say?
He asks you to return to Rome.
Huh.
People are missing you there, he says.
Oh, yes, Antony can't wait to see me again.
People in Rome fear you've abandoned them. He wants to work with you through the Senate.
Very magnanimous of him. And is he proposing to act as my bodyguard, a 19-year-old of delicate constitution? Will he fend off Antony's gangs all by himself?
He says he's assembled an army of his own from Caesar's veterans in Campania. He's popular and wealthy, and he has the legitimacy as Caesar's legal heir.
Legitimacy is all very well, but Antony
has left the city.
What?
He's gone to Brundisium to meet the 4 legions arriving from Macedonia.
So now the contest begins.
He was supposed to take up the governorship of Macedonia, but he's passed a new law. Well, he calls it a law. Instead, appointing himself governor of northern, central, and Cisalpine Gaul for 5 years.
So having pillaged Caesar's funds and pillaged the state treasury, he will now spend 5 years pillaging our richest province.
He intends to take the Macedonian legions as well.
Oh, yes. And how does he square that with any concept or precept or shameful shred of legality?
Emergency powers.
Ha! Tyranny. Plain and simple. Can anyone be in any doubt? What does it matter what I say? They make black white and white black and cut off your head if you try to object. I learned the rules of the club and I tried to defend them, and then they tore up the rule book.
My master, my father, Octavian is ready to challenge him. He wants to work with you and the Senate on his side, and he promises to restore the Republic.
Back to the cave.
What?
Go on, Tata. Back to your smelly old cave, she used to say to me.
Oh, yes. The cave. Well, you said she was calling you back in the storm. Maybe this is why you saw her.
I've started a new work Did I tell you?
I've had a look at some of your notes.
A squint.
Harder than ever to decipher. The more your words pour forth, the less legible they become.
On duties.
I'm never off duty.
The title, On Duties.
Ah.
A code of conduct for the younger generation addressed to my son, since my generation has failed so abjectly. My attempt to pass the guttering flame of the Republic to anyone able to read or remember.
The responsible citizen will devote himself entirely to the Republic, and he will protect the whole in such a way that he takes thought for every individual, and he will adhere I'm sorry, I can't make this up.
He will adhere so tightly to justice and integrity that for as long as he guards them, he will endure any setback, however serious, and he will face death.
And he will face death rather than abandon these virtues I have mentioned.
My dearest one, I feel very strange speaking to you like this. Please forgive me if I say anything wrong or thoughtless or vain or selfish. I would like to remember everything you said to me at Brundisium, that first time when you came to welcome me home.
My dearest Tata, I am writing to you with wonderful news. I hope that my words will be the first to reach you in Dyrrachium to tell you that your suffering is ended. Our ally, Pompey Magnus, has prevailed. May all the gods be thanked. The senators voted overwhelmingly to recall you from exile, and our enemy, Publius Clodius, is confounded. Take the first fair wind and calm sea to speed your way home to Italy, where your Tulliola will be waiting impatiently, bursting with joy to hold you in my arms once more.
Look, Tyro. There he is, Tata. Oh, there he is, Tata.
Tullio! Oh, my dearest Tulliola!
Oh, Tata, you're home. I can't believe it. I'm so happy. Welcome home, Tata.
I could hardly stand. You know I have no sea legs. I'm still bobbing up and down. Tyro, my dear Tyro, I'm very happy to see you. How are you?
I'm overjoyed to see you, sir.
I thought I might never see any of you again. And today, Tullia, is your birthday.
Yes, Tata. Today I am a grand old widow of 21.
Yes. Yes, my love. Oh. This is such a cruel fate. Your beloved Piso. On top of all the misfortunes that I have heaped upon our family, your good, kind, generous husband, Gaius Calpurnius, and I know everything he did for me.
Yes, Tata. He fought tirelessly for your vindication. He never stopped striving, agitating, petitioning on your behalf. He loved you and admired you.
And now he is gone and you are all alone, my poor, wonderful Tulliola.
I'm not alone, Tata. Now you're home.
I remembered, for your birthday, I didn't forget. This is a talisman from Eleusis in Greece, where they celebrate the mysteries. It's a symbol of the Anodos, Persephone, ascending from Hades.
It's jade. So beautiful. Emerald green.
And it comes from deep underground.
From the fires of the earth.
Yes. Like the spring returning to the earth after winter. Well, it's for you, my darling, on your birthday. Where's your mother and little Cicero, little Marcus Tullius?
They'll meet us along the way, sir, at Tres Tabernae.
Tata, you need to prepare yourself for a great deal of excitement. The news of your return has spread like wildfire. All along the Appian Way, in every town, they're waiting to welcome you, the Pater Patriae. There are great garlands of flowers strung across the streets, and musicians, and cakes, and sweetmeats, and great vats of wine, and every kind of merrymaking. They're saying, the saviour of the Republic has returned.
They put on mourning when I went into exile, and now this for the Novus Homo from Arpinum.
It's been such a terrible time, Tata. The streets of Rome have become a place of terror. So much violence and crime and no elections. With Caesar away in Gaul and Pompey. Well, I will not say anything against Pompey now.
Pompey has been almost a prisoner in his own home. He's terrified of assassination, or he's hiding in his country properties.
And our poor Uncle Quintus was nearly killed.
My poor brother Quintus, yes. Atticus told me something about this. I think he wanted to shield me from the full story.
One of Clodius's gangs hunted him down in the Forum and cornered him. He was armed. He fought like a wild thing, they said, and he wounded 3 of them.
Quintus, that's such a hothead. He should have fled.
He was trapped. They overwhelmed him. They beat him savagely and left him for dead. We sent out men as soon as we realized he hadn't come home. We thanked the gods we found him.
And now?
He's recovering well. He's convalescing in Arpinum.
I wish your mother had come, and little Marcus Tullius. Are they safe?
Tata, you must try to understand Mother. Mother is changed. Tyro, will you see about the carriage?
Yes, mistress. I left them beyond the harbour front. I'll make them bring it closer.
Now, what are you saying, my love? I know how hard all this has been for your mother.
I know she has told you some things. I think she's tried to spare you all of the horrors.
Well, what? What has she not told me?
When they came to our house on the Palatine, Clodius and his thugs,
They burned it down, yes?
Mother was there with little Marcus. They tossed burning brands through the windows, started yelling taunts, obscene threats, jeering, singing vile songs about you. Mother said it was terrifying, but she was so angry. She took a dagger and would have gone out there to face them, but Tyro restrained her. He almost had to wrestle her. He told her to take little Marcus out through the garden and flee to our aunt at the house of the Vestals. I don't know how he got away himself. Our household, the slaves were beaten and raped as they tried to escape. The kitchen girl from Cilicia,
Lavinia.
she died in the fire.
And it is all my fault.
No, please don't keep saying that, Tata. In your letters, you poured out your tears and self-reproach. Everything is my fault. I'm so ashamed. What's to become of you? I want you to stop saying all that, Tata. Stop thinking it won't change anything. You were a consul of Rome. You acted to save the state from violence and insurrection.
If I had accepted an alliance with Caesar and Pompey and prized my independence less stubbornly, things might have been very different.
Don't let it all have been for nothing, Tata.
How is your mother now? I will embrace Caesar and Pompey and restore our family name. I will win back all our properties. I will swallow any compromise to restore our fortune and our name. How is she?
She is changed. She is sad, often silent. She is always solicitous for every need of little Marcus. She is often at the house of the Vestals with our aunt. She prays and performs every pious ceremony. She seldom smiles. There was a time, not long after you left and they burnt our house, she brought little Marcus to me and asked me to look after him. She said she had received a summons from Clodius to answer some questions. Some sort of interrogation. She didn't know what would happen, whether anything would be done to her, but she thought it would probably be worse for all of us if she refused to attend. I don't know what was said, Tata. I don't know if anything was done to her, any violence or dishonour. She would tell me nothing. Afterwards, she went to stay with her aunt. No one was permitted to visit. Little Marcus kept asking, "Where is Mama? When are we going home?" I told him that she was getting better with her sister. I didn't know what to say. Where is his home anyway? All our properties are gone. Mother sold the last of her tenements in Rome.
I asked her not to do that.
She had no money left.
Quintus would have helped.
Uncle Quintus has paid off many of your debts, Tata. So many properties and so many debts. She wouldn't take any more from him. She had no choice.
Well, I am vindicated by the state, it seems, so there will be compensation and I can repay my brother and your mother and restore our name.
When we arrived at the Tres Tabernae and saw all the festive preparations for your return, all she said was, "I don't think I will come to Brundisium to meet your father. You and Tyro can go. We'll wait for you here."
Is that all she said?
She said, "I can't bear to see him swagger." None of us doubts the sincerity of your public service, Tata. Your industry and diligence, your unimpeachable honesty. You took a bold and difficult decision at a time of extreme danger, and you saved the state and saved a great many lives. None of us disputes that. It's just...
Well, what is it, my love? Please, let there be no inhibitions between us.
Your self-regard, Tata. In good times and in bad. Mother used to hurl your letters across the room, rip them or throw them in the fire. All the self-pity, self-reproach, everything is lost. All is despair, and it's all my fault. I saved our nation, I could not save our family. She called you a play actor, playing at being the tragic hero.
Is that what you think, Tullia?
That poem on your consulship, people still make jibes about it, Tata. Those who love you were embarrassed for you. How fortunate the state of Rome, which in my consulship has grown. Why did you have to praise your own achievements with such vulgarity?
Because they will not.
Why do you need men's praise? I'm your daughter, Tata, not your wife. On a good day, I can even find your smelly old sandals endearing. Yes, you can be very conceited, and it is ugly and off-putting. It provokes people. I think there is no one on this earth who loves you as much as I do. So trust me when I say this. And tomorrow, when you prepare to travel the Appian Way in triumphal procession, hailed once more as the Pater Patriae, stay humble. My adored Tata, wiser and stronger. Don't let it all have been for nothing.
Don't let it all have been for nothing. Very well. I will do my best to learn a better mind and a better heart with whatever time is left. I realize now, my love, I don't know if you can hear me. I realize now, many years too late, what I might have said to your mother. It was not my action against Catiline that earned me the hatred of my enemies. I pretended for many years, even to myself, especially to myself, to be a noble martyr for justice, vilified for my heroic service to the state. It's not true. My action against Catiline provided the excuse, the legal irregularity, execution without trial at a time of emergency. The reason they came after me was my insufferable vanity. I did not have to taunt Clodius at the Bona Dea trial, scoring points in court against a pampered, degenerate aristocrat, humiliating him to roars of laughter from the crowd. I did not have to buy that extravagant house on the Palatine. In my craving for recognition, adulation, I thought I was now one of them, and I wanted a big house on the Palatine to prove it. I was teaching Clodius some manners. I was making Caesar a better citizen. Pompey was my #1 fan. What was I thinking? They were laughing in their sleeve, even as I was being hailed Pater Patriae. I was rash and vain and overreached myself, and the patrician elite took its revenge. You think you're safe within the rules, so they rewrite the rules. Caesar's Pontifex Maximus, Pompey's one of the augurs, so we say Clodius can become a commoner, and he can be elected tribune of the plebs, and he can make new laws and implement them retrospectively. Anyone who's ever executed a Roman citizen without trial must be condemned to exile. All provoked by my swagger. It spreads like bindweed through all my life and works. Even my grief for you has been ostentatious. I must build a temple for my daughter, have her deified. Why must I always aggrandize? Why can't I just accept being a man like any other?
I'm sorry to disturb, sir. Another letter has arrived from Octavian.
2 in one day.
Yes, it says that we should...
Later, please, Tyro. My notes for the treatise.
On duties?
Yes. Can you find where I begin? Book 3, please.
A practical guide to behavior.
Yes, where I begin with an address to my son. Can you read it back to me, please?
Publius Cornelius Scipio, first of that family to be called Africanus, often remarked that he was never less idle than when he had nothing to do, and never less lonely than when he was by himself. Other men are enervated by leisure and seclusion, but he derives stimulation from them. I wish I could truthfully say the same of myself. Of course, I cannot give myself so remarkable a character.
Once, I lived with great crowds around me.
Are you dictating?
Yes, dictating, please, take it down. Once
I lived with great crowds
around me, but now I shun the sight of the scoundrels who swarm on every side. I withdraw as completely as I can, and I am often alone. However, as the philosophers instruct, one must not only choose the least among evils, one must also seek to draw from them whatever good they contain. My son, every part of philosophy is instructive and fruitful. No part barren.
I'm sorry, sir. I must interrupt you. We need to discuss Octavian's letter. 2 of the Macedonian legions have defected from Antony and aligned themselves with Octavian. Antony has moved north towards Gaul. Decimus Brutus is governor there till the end of the year.
So, Antony will try to seize the province. Decimus Brutus must stand firm.
Octavian exhorts you to return to Rome immediately.
I am in no mind to put myself forward. Sober reflection is what I need. I may not have very much more time, Tyro. I would like to finish this treatise. It will probably be my last effort of meditation, an endeavor to grapple with wisdom for my son. The thought of going back to Rome, pitching myself again into that nest of backbiting and politicking, girding up my loins for another flourish, another parade of my legendary eloquence. Truly, Tyro, I am weary of the sound of my own voice and empty in soul.
Well then, perhaps, sir, you are truly ready to become the father of the Republic.
I am humbled in my own eyes, Tyro, and mortally afraid.
Whoever does not fear danger is a fool. It is courage
that raises the blood of life to crimson splendor. Yes, Horace.
And humility is the beginning of wisdom.
Tyro.
Or, if you prefer, Socrates, the only true wisdom is knowing you know nothing.
Well, now that I have the wisdom, perhaps, to serve my country, to revive the Senate, to restore the Republic and lead her into the light, I don't want any of it. I want to retire and write something truly honest, some distillation of all this struggle, loss, bitterly gained wisdom. I don't want to go back to Rome.
Then, like Plato's philosopher, purged of all ambition, you are the only one qualified to lead.
Don't let it all have been for nothing, Tata.
Don't let it all have been for nothing, Tata. I love you, my father, with a love deeper than the fires of the earth, higher than the immortal heavens. You are loved and admired throughout Rome, Italy, and the world. Even your enemies admire you and hate you because you show them what they are not. Great men seek your approval, solicit you as an ally, because your name is a byword for integrity, honesty, moderation, and wisdom. And the secret which I am permitted to share with you from the land of the dead, the blessed realm beyond the cave, where all that is true and good endures eternally, is this. In Elysium, the souls of the righteous bless your name. They mourn your every sorrow. They pray for your strength, your courage, your perseverance. You are loved, my Father, beyond any mortal reckoning. Believe in that love. Now love yourself as you are.
November 29th, 710, ab urbe condita, Formiae. Marcus Tullius Cicero to Decimus Brutus, greeting. My dear Brutus, allow me once again to salute you, one of our glorious liberators who, like your kinsman Marcus Junius, have proved so valiantly and faithfully worthy the mantle of your distinguished forebear. You will know that the tyrant and traitor Mark Antony, styling himself consul of Rome and governor-elect of Gaul, is marching north against you. You must stand firm. The Senate, the Republic, Caesar's heir, Octavian, and I support you, salute you, and will send Take stylus and wax, Tyro. We are going to write a speech.
That is very good, sir.
A defense against tyranny. A Philippic, you might say.
Modelled on Demosthenes.
Demosthenes against Philip of Macedon. Cicero against Antony. Let us begin. Members of the Senate, why is this my fate? I am obliged to record that for 20 years past, our country has never had an enemy who has not simultaneously made himself an enemy of mine as well. You will remember the men for yourselves. They have paid me graver penalties than I could have wished. Antony, you are modelling your actions on theirs. So, what happened to them ought to frighten you, for they did not seek me out as enemies. No, it was I who, for patriotic reasons, took the initiative against every one of them. But you, I have never injured, even in words, and yet, without provocation, you have assailed me with gross insults.
20th of December, 44 BC. Decimus Brutus declares that he will not hand over his province to Antony.
For what was left of Rome, Antony, owed its final annihilation to yourself. In your home, everything had a price, and a truly sordid series of deals it was.
Cicero launches a determined and ruthless attack on Antony in the Senate, urging them to approve Decimus Brutus's resistance.
You are a drink-sodden, sex-ridden wreck. Never a day passes in that ill-reputed house of yours without orgies of the most repulsive kind. I'm not going to treat him as a consul. He does not live like one, he does not work like one, and he was never elected to be one.
The legally elected consuls, Aulus Hirtius
and Gaius Vibius Pansa.
take up their office in Rome.
Antony besieges Decimus Brutus and his troops at Mutina, northern Italy.
Yet everything I decided, every policy, every action derived from this senatorial order. Its deliberations, its authority, and its rulings.
Antony's legal right to claim the province of Gaul is rescinded.
Antony's supporters in the Senate, led by Quintus Calenus, petitioned for a peace deal to avoid civil war.
What a vicious, unsavory crook. Your consulship is beneficent, mine was destructive. You dare make that assertion in this temple of concord, now crammed by your agency with delinquents bristling with weapons.
January 43 BC, the Senate sends envoys to negotiate with Antony.
Antony refuses the Senate's terms for peace and sends back a series of counterdemands.
Go on, criticize the Senate, criticize the equestrians, assail every class and every citizen with your accusations.
Throughout February and March, Antony's supporters in the Senate continue to press for peace negotiations.
20th of March, 43 BC, Antony's ally, Marcus Aemilius Lepidus, now governor of southern Gaul, may make war if the Senate refuses to make peace.
Your new story is this. I was responsible for the killing of Caesar. And yet among the company who did that most glorious of deeds, my name was never once heard. Enroll me among such heroes, I beg of you.
March 43 BC. Cicero defies Lepidus with a vehement renewal of his call to take up arms against Antony.
Though if I had been among their number, I should have freed our country, not just from the tyrant, but from the tyranny.
March 43 BC. Octavian and the consul
Aulus Hirtius
march northwards with 5 legions of veterans to relieve Decimus Brutus.
Co-consul Gaius Vibius Pansa marches north with 4 more legions of recruits to support Hirtius and Octavian.
Who benefited thereby? Take care, Antony. You might be implicated. You, who employed Caesar's funds to wipe out your gigantic debts. You, who, after manipulating these same account books, squandered countless sums. Nothing short of Caesar's death could have rescued you from your debtor's ruin.
14th of April, 43 BC. Antony ambushes Pansa's army at Forum Gallorum, close to Mutina.
A bloody battle ensues. Pansa's legions are driven southwards. While Octavian guards the Senate's camp, Pansa himself is seriously wounded.
Just as seeds are the origin of trees and plants, so you, Antony, were the seed of our most grievous civil war.
As Antony marches his victorious troops back towards Mutina,
Hirtius
arrives from the north with a single legion of veterans and crashes into Antony's exhausted troops, capturing 2 Roman eagles and 60 standards.
Antony's victory is turned into defeat, and he falls back with his cavalry to his camp outside Mutina.
When the news reaches Rome, the city erupts with joy. The delighted populace carries Cicero shoulder high like a triumphant general from his house to the Capitoline Hill.
He has been our Helen of Troy.
The next day, 21st of March, 43 BC, Cicero launches a renewed assault on Antony in the Senate.
Antony fought in the civil war. He wallowed in the blood of Romans who were in every way his opposites.
The same day, Hirtius
And Octavian
launched their attack, determined to force a passage through the besieged city for supply columns and break the siege.
In order to stop his siege lines from breaking, Antony orders up 2 legions to stem the advance of Hirtius and Octavian's troops. a fierce battle ensues.
You toured Italy with your actress courtesan by your side, and in the communities through which you passed, amid scenes of brutality and misery, you planted your soldiers as settlers.
Antony's reinforcements are taken by surprise and enter the field late, where Octavian's forces are dominating the fighting.
As the battle rages, Hirtius boldly decides to break into Antony's own camp, making straight for Antony's own tent.
At precisely the same moment, Decimus Brutus sends out a sortie from Mutina to attack Antony's camp.
Hirtius leads in the front line of his troops in the attack on Antony's headquarters. Antony's legions rally to defend their commander's tent.
In an awkward and bloody melee, Antony's legion halt the advance. Hirtius is killed in the fighting.
His troops fall back, but Octavian's legions come to their rescue.
Octavian finds himself in the midst of the fiercest clashes and fights ferociously to recover Hirtius's body.
But Octavian's legions retreat, unable to maintain possession of the camp.
Decimus Brutus' troops retreat back towards Mutina. The Senate demands the Hirtius legion be handed over to Decimus Brutus.
But Octavian refuses. He now commands 8 legions loyal to himself rather than the Republic.
You went up to Caesar's chair and you flourished a diadem, a crown.
23rd of April, 43 BC. Antony abandons the siege at Mutina and marches to meet Lepidus and his allies in Gaul.
26th of April, 43 BC. The Senate finally agrees to Cicero's demand to declare Antony and his men public enemies.
This was crime, deliberate and premeditated. Then you placed the diadem on his head. The people groaned. He took it off, and they applauded.
A few days after the battle, the consul Pansa dies from his wounds received at Forum Gallorum.
Rome has lost both its consuls within a few days.
To propose that there should be a king and an autocrat at Rome, you even hurled yourself at his feet as a suppliant.
In Rome, Cicero and the Senate demand that Octavian hand over his troops to Decimus Brutus, but he refuses.
Decimus Brutus' plan to march in pursuit of Antony's forces is frustrated by Octavian, enabling Antony to join forces with Lepidus, mustering 17 legions and 10,000 cavalry between them.
Where could you possibly find a refuge in any city with laws or law courts, since these are precisely what you have done your utmost to abolish and replace with tyranny? Was this why Tarquin was expelled? To allow Antony, centuries after, to commit the forbidden evil of setting up a king at Rome?
Despite the Senate's lukewarm attitude towards Octavian, Cicero decides to champion him as an ally against Antony.
15th of May, 43 BC. Marcus Brutus writes to Cicero from Greece, warning him that
Octavian is now seeking the consulship for himself.
The protection you need, Antony, is not weapons, but the affection and goodwill of your fellow citizens. The people of Rome will seize your weapons and wrench them from you.
June 43 BC. Marcus Brutus and Cassius, now in control of the provinces of Syria and Macedonia, have amassed powerful forces and resources.
Cicero writes desperate letters to Marcus Brutus, begging him to return to Italy to lead the fight, to finish what he started. But he does not come.
The name of peace is beautiful, but slavery is the worst of all evils, to be repelled, if need be, by the cost of war and even of death.
July 43 BC. Octavian marches his army upon Rome to demand the consulship.
August 19th, the youngest consul in Roman history assumes his post, taking a distant relative as co-consul.
November 43 BC. Octavian marches north, ostensibly to challenge Antony's forces, but in fact meets with Antony and Lepidus at a summit near Bononi.
Antony, Octavian, and Lepidus form an alliance, the Commission of Three, for the ordering of the state.
The second triumvirate.
When I was a young man, I defended our state. In my old age, I shall not abandon it.
The three men parcel up the empire between themselves. appoint magistrates for 5 years, and publish the single largest death warrant Rome has ever seen. The prescription list, naming 2,000 equestrians and 300 senators who are all to be killed.
At the top of the list, at Antony's insistence, are Marcus Tullius Cicero, his brother Quintus Cicero, and their 2 sons.
Having scorned the swords of Catiline, I shall not be intimidated by yours. On the contrary, I would gladly offer my body if my death could redeem the freedom of our nation.
Cicero and his brother Quintus decide to flee Italy to join Marcus Brutus and his forces in Macedonia, where young Marcus Tullius is now fighting.
Attempting to return to Rome secretly to gather money and possessions, Quintus and his son are betrayed and killed.
Nearly 20 years ago, I declared in this very temple that death could not come prematurely to a man who had been consul. How much more reason have I now to say this, now that I am old? 2 things only I pray for. One, that in dying I may leave the Roman people free. The immortal gods could grant me no greater gift. My other prayer is this, that no man's fortune may fail to correspond with his services to our country.
Everything's prepared, sir.
Everything prepared,
The boat's
yes.
at anchor. I've checked her over.
Fully provisioned for 30 days at sea if need be.
Yes, sir.
Swell.
Some swell, yes. White horses further out.
But Felix Gallus says it's safe to sail.
Yes, sir. We'll set a course for Sardinia.
No one will expect that. The first fair day, we'll cross to Utica, down to New Carthage, and then make our way to Macedonia.
To join young Marcus Tullius.
Well, we tried, Tyro. We did our best, I suppose.
Let us go, sir.
30-odd years ago, more, I think, when I was starting out, must have been about the time you were born, I'd been elected quaestor for Sicily, the first rung on the cursus honorum. And they'd had a terrible time of it there, where that scoundrel Verres was governor, pillaging and extorting, bleeding them bone dry. So I set about trying to set things to right, clean up the mess. They were very grateful. But the thing they were most happy about was when we found Archimedes' tomb. It had been lost amidst all the neglect. So I financed, out of my own pocket, some excavations in Syracuse around the Agrigentine Gate, and eureka! We found it. All overgrown with bushes. They were ever so happy and proud. So we cleaned it up, restored the inscription and so on, and I remember the foreman telling me the local legend about how he died.
Archimedes?
Yes. During the siege of Syracuse, he wasn't the slightest bit interested in the battle, apparently. He was working on a complex mathematical problem when the city was captured, drawing circles in the sand. So a Roman soldier comes up to him and tells him the city's been captured, and his commander, the great Marcus Marcellus, is very keen to meet him. Archimedes says, "No thanks, I'm too busy working on this problem." So the soldier draws his sword in a rage and kills him. And according to the legend, his last words were, "Mer mu tus conclus tarate."
Don't disturb my circles.
Oh, what a glorious snub. Imperial Rome in all its martial splendor. Don't disturb my circle.
Please, sir, we must go. No more time. Antony's men will be looking for us everywhere.
Oh, well, I'd better be on my way. Will you promise me, Tyro, to take very good care of that weak chest of yours and your throat? Warm scarves and mufflers in the winter. I don't want you getting ill again. Will you promise?
Yes, sir.
You gave me a terrible fright when you got so ill with pneumonia. You've got a lot of responsibilities now, Tyro. Your own family, all your properties and business ventures, bless you. Yeah, don't be like me. Don't take on too much debt.
No, sir.
And then you'll have an awful lot of work sorting out all my papers and so on. My letters, I know you've made copies of them all.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, I shall leave it to your excellent discretion as to which ones to publish. And will you please make sure that my son receives the first fair copy of On Duties? It's for him.
Please, let's go, sir.
You're not coming with me, Tyro.
My master, my father.
No. I will not have you exposed to danger. No more unnecessary deaths. I'm glad I made my reconciliation with Quintus and my nephew before. Well, I'm glad.
Please, sir.
No. You'll be safe here. Lucius and Titus can accompany me to the harbor, and I'll see you in Macedonia.
Do you remember the ceremony of my manumission, sir, all those years ago at Arpinum?
Of course I remember. It was a big day. I was particularly delighted when Pompey turned up.
You spoke the vows, giving me my freedom, making me a citizen, and you asked me what name I would like to be known by. And I asked for the honor of bearing your names. Because you have been like a father to me.
Goodbye, Marcus, Tullius, Tyro. Thank you. Best friend a man could ever have. Wild Jasmine. Perhaps we shall have a fair wind and an easy passage.
The man who betrayed my father was Philologus, a former slave of my uncle Quintus.
Guided by him, a centurion named Herennius and another officer, Popilius, intercepted my master on his journey down to the harbour at Formiae.
My father had once defended Popilius in court.
My master's slaves, Lucius and Titus, drew their weapons to defend him, but he forbade them to fight. His last words were, "There's nothing proper about what you are doing, soldier. But do try to kill me properly."
He pulled down his robe, clasped his chin with his left hand, and leaned back his head to expose his neck.
It took 3 blows, they said, to sever his head from his body.
His assassins carried his head and hands back to Rome to collect their bounty.
Mark Antony's wife, Fulvia, took my master's head, pulled out his tongue, and stabbed it again and again with a hairpin.
Afterwards, on Antony's orders, my father's head and hands were carried into the forum and nailed to the rostrum, the speaker's platform, where his speeches had stirred the souls of Roman citizens and steered the ship of state for so many years. Cicero, the last Republican.
My master often wondered whether he would be remembered, what history would make of his life and works.
Many years later, Octavian, now the Emperor Augustus, visiting his grandson, saw the boy reading one of my father's books.
Terrified, the boy tried to hide the book under his cloak.
The Emperor took the book and stood a long time reading it. Then he handed it back to his grandson and said,
He was a master of words, my child.
"A master of words, who loved his country."
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming. We just have one or two thank yous we would like to say. On behalf of J Productions and our producer, Julia Holden, we would like to thank the International Festival of the Teatro Romano International Festival here in Volterra and its director and producer, Simone Migliorini, for their welcome and support for this production. Thank you. Thank you. Also, we thank our producer, Julia, and all of our team, our director, Rupert Mason, sound designer, composer, Julia Starr, and on stage management and operating surtitles and many other roles, Karin DePonte, and all of the people being involved behind the scenes. Thank you very much. And we also would like to thank our sponsor, the Karma Group, and thank you for coming. Good night.
Thank you.